Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful and talented Miss Kristin West. Kristin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ken. Thank you so much for having me on your show. So excited.
No, this is an honor for me. I'm so excited. For those of you that don't know, I've been having a little bit of a trend here with the Central Authority cast and crew, and Kristin is the driving force behind the Central Authority, being co-writer, co-director, producer, and star, as well as many other things. Circus of the Dead, Seeking Valentina, Strangers in a Book, The Spirit Room. You are a busy, busy lady, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. Before we get into your first horror movie, though, I've talked to everybody else a little bit about, when we're talking about the Central Authority. This is very unique. This is something very unique that was filmed in all parts of the world. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Central Authority?
Yes, I can. And it's interesting because, as we know, the entertainment industry has been really challenged by the pandemic. I know where I was the day before we had lockdown in California. And first 2 weeks of it, I was really, as everybody has been, down. Let's face it, kind of sucks. And I was on a video chat, very similar to this, with my mom, my producing partner, Armin Nasseri, and Dana Olita. Now, my mom lives in Texas. She lives in a spooky 80-year-old house. And we're talking just on a screen like this, very similar. And she's walking around her house. And I look at Armin and I say, Armin, that looks like the Blair Witch Project. Look at it. And then all of a sudden the light bulb went off. And I said, you can do COVID-safe movies that are contactless if you're willing to be creative. Yeah. So we took the existing technologies, and 9 months later, we made a feature film.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean,
story.
you have Anna, who was filming in London, and it's just like I said, you're literally filming all around the world. So this is something I'm so excited for people to be able to check out. This is so incredible. And the cast you have is great. The writing you had was great. This is something that I think is going to be a huge hit, especially with how unique it is. This is something, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a very, very unique film. So it's something I'm very excited to be able to share with the world.
I think if you like Borat, if you like that style of political comedy, and you are open to movies like Kentucky Fried Movie or Groove Tube or Amazon Women on the Moon, this is going to be your kind of movie. And I will tell you, political humor, I think everybody's politicaled out, but we kind of take aim at everybody and everything in this movie too.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where you can't draw a line, because if you draw a line and say, I'm not going to make fun of this, then you have no room to stand to make fun of anything. So laugh at everything, including yourself, and everything will be fine. And this is something that I've always preached. Never draw that line, because once you draw the line and you offend one person, you're going to find a way to offend everyone. So just be yourself and have fun.
Exactly. And I think there was a lot of people who had a reaction. Why are you making a comedy, a horror comedy during this time? I was like, you need to laugh.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to laugh, especially at this time. And listen, not every skit is going to resonate with everybody in this movie. Some people are going to really like some of the more sexy, edgy humor. Some people are going to really like the more satire, satirical elements of the movie. But I can tell you there is something for everyone in this movie. And I know every director says that, but it really is true here, I promise.
And I think people are really going to appreciate how you guys filmed this movie. This isn't something that you were willing to put people at risk. The way that you guys filmed it, and talking to all the people that I've talked to already, I still have a couple more cast members that I'm going to be talking to in the next couple days. And it's something that when I heard about this movie and I heard about how you guys did it, I knew I had to sink my teeth into you guys, because this is something that I think is so unique and so fun and so exciting. So do we have about an idea when people are going to be able to check this out?
We are actually in the process of negotiating the distribution right now. I actually am looking at offers right now. So as soon as I know, Ken, you're going to know. Like, seriously, we may, if you'll have me back on, I'll scoop it for you too. I mean, there's a lot of interest in this movie. And just to reiterate, this was pretty much contactless production. Nobody wearing, we didn't need masks because nobody was actually in the same room. We didn't need to take temperature every day because no one was in the same room. We had one actress in London in the same scene as another actress in Los Angeles, actors in Texas in the same scene as actors in Los Angeles, and actors in Nevada. You know, it's really interesting what the technology allows us to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we are filming on November 5th. Today's the 5th, correct? Or the 4th?
Today is the 5th.
Today's
It's
the
hard
5th.
when you have pandemic brain because you're like, what day is it? What day of the week
agree.
is it?
But when this goes live, hopefully by then, it'll be a couple weeks before we go live. So if I have any updates by then, they'll be down here in the description. If I don't have any updates by then, please follow me as well as Kristin. I have all her social media down here in the description as well. And I would be more than honored to have her and some of the other cast on once we have some distribution details so we can get that out to you guys. Because I promise you, this is not a film you're going to want to miss. This is something that technologically and just, it's one of those things where you watch it and you're like, this is so fucking brilliant. Like, this is brilliant. And it's something that I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. This is something that it took a big leap of faith for you to go out and actually do something like this. And you executed it and it worked out to perfection. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm glad to call you a friend. And this is so cool. Thank you again for coming on. And thank you again for bringing us such an amazing movie during a pandemic.
Well, thank you. I'm honored and privileged. And I told my cast and crew, I said, I don't know if this is going to work. Mm-hmm. And I really meant that. I didn't know. I said, we're going to try and we're going to give ourselves permission to fail. And I would also say, Ken, if you're a fan of improv, mm-hmm. this film is 80% improv. Okay, this is like, yeah. So this is like comedy on a tightrope. And I felt like I was walking a tightrope the whole time. And hopefully by the time we come back and circle back with you in a few weeks, we might even know who the president of the United States is.
Jeez, let's hope. It's weird. Like, I was like, man, I'm so ready for this to be done. And now I actually feel lonely because I'm not getting 18 texts a day. I don't feel wanted anymore. There's nobody out there that wants me now. It's really sad. One guy got me. He asked me, he said, are we still on for tomorrow? And I was like, what? Who's this? He said, this is Frank with the Democratic Party. I was like, you know what, Frank? I'm not even mad. Good for you, buddy, because you got me.
Yeah, I mean, no, I totally understand that feeling of being discarded by the political system and politicos, and in some ways, our movie addresses that, where you're only as good as your entertainment value or your value to other people. And once that goes away, once you're irrelevant or not needed or unnecessary, you're gone. So there's a lot of commentary about this, about cancel culture as well, and what that means. And I can tell you, especially with this movie, you're going to find yourself laughing at certain things, and then you're going to feel uncomfortable with yourself for laughing at it.
Yeah. And
it was intended to be that way.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be. And like you said, it sucks because you guys are in the entertainment business and you have everybody all the time telling you, you know, keep politics out of it. We don't want to hear you talk about politics, but damn it, you're a human being too. And this is your country too. And you have a voice. Why not use what you have? You have this platform where you're able to spread your voice. Why would you not use it? You know, I work at an auto parts store full time. People don't come in there and go, hey, stick to auto parts, man. No, because I'm a human too. And this is my country and I have a voice and I'm proud of it. And whether you're left wing or right wing, it's the same eagle. And we have to remember that, especially right now, something that whether you voted for Joe Biden or whether you voted for Donald Trump, I can honestly say I was so proud driving through my hometown on Tuesday and seeing the lines stretched around the buildings. I've never been more proud to be American than I was that day. Whether you agreed with who I was voting for or you disagreed with who I was voting for, I was so proud to say that everybody is willing to get their voice out there. And we have a record number of people that went out and participated in this year's election. So to all of you that went out and participated in the election this year for the United States president, thank you. It means so much. It's something that we take for granted. This is a freedom that people have fought and died for. And you guys are acknowledging that and using your voices to try to get yourselves out there. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to every single one of you that went out there and did your job. You're amazing. So I'll be done with that now. But before
I think you make a great point. Some of the best American films are absolutely political. The Grapes of Wrath was political. Casablanca, political.
Hmm. Well, and you even look at, even in the horror world, you know, look at what Night of the Living Dead tackled when that came out. You know, it's one of those things where people don't, they look at it as a zombie movie, but when you watch it, that movie's a total play on race,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and horror movies have always had that way of sneaking in those messages. Look at The People Under the Stairs. That's a complete movie about race. It's one of those things where, you know, horror movies have a tendency of doing that as well. So it's something that you have a voice, you have a platform. Don't silence yourself. Use your platform. Just because you're saying, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, or you're saying, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, that doesn't mean that the people listening to you have to. But you don't have to keep it a secret either. You have a voice, you have a platform. Share your voice. Please continue to do that. Anybody watching this, share your voice. Don't hate somebody because of their political views. Like I said, left wing, right wing, same eagle. We need each other. That's what makes this country the greatest in the world. So please stop the hate. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm a sarcastic asshole. I get it. But love conquers all, man. So please try to remember that. Love your neighbor. Tomorrow morning, when you go to McDonald's to get your sausage McMuffin, Donald Trump or Joe Biden is not going to be the person serving that to you. It's going to be one of your neighbors that you have to continue to love, no matter who they voted for. Please try to remember that, guys.
Right. And a lot of the central authority is about objectification as well.
Yeah.
And you're watching these numbers change on a screen of viewership. And when you see that a certain number of people are okay with this person dying live on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, it's heartbreaking to me in this country where there are people that are okay with 200,000 people dead. That's just a cold, hard number, that doesn't have a living, breathing reality to them. Oh,
Yeah.
well, they were vulnerable. Oh, well, they were old. Well, not all of them were old. Oh, well, they were, you know, whatever. And that's what we're dealing with, is how desensitized we are to the subjectivity of other human beings, and how we have a culture of objectification that's far more than just the objectification of women's bodies, even though that's important. We have people as objects in polls or we only value them for entertainment. Therefore, if they don't entertain us, they don't have any value beyond that, you know. And I would say this particular movie, we call it a dystopian horror comedy. It's not a direct commentary on the whole Trump Biden thing. It's sort of in a near-term future where some of these more fringe ideals really get breathing room to metastasize. And it's like, you know, if you are into books like 1984, Brave New World, you're going to see elements of that in there as well.
Right. And I'm lucky. I don't know if I should spoil this or not, but I did get an advanced copy. I did get to see the film, and I love it. I love it. Me and my wife watched it on a movie night, and I don't want to spoil anything. That's why I leave that out of here, but I love it. And when I say that, when I had the opportunity to get the cast on, that's why I was so excited, because I'm a genuine fan too. This isn't something where, oh, I want to get these people on this podcast and try to boost views. I'm a fan. So to be able to talk to you guys, I'm fangirling about this. I've been talking about it all day. I mean, it's something I'm super excited about.
Well, I'm glad it resonated. And I have to say, I'm so glad you're talking to the cast. In this particular movie, the cast were asked, each actor, all 30 of us, went above and beyond what normal circumstances would be. They all did their character work. They had nothing on paper. We talked about it. We sometimes did beat sheets on the skits, but they were asked to bring every single actor, whether it was Charlie, Lachelle, Anna, Armin, Jake, whoever, all 30 of them were asked to bring a distinct character, and then we would put them in these environments and see what would hit and what would miss. That's not for everyone.
Right.
That takes an actor that is highly skilled to do that, be comfortable with it, be comfortable enough with themselves. And there is no one in this movie, in my opinion, and I've heard this opinion of other people who've watched it, there's no one here. This movie and its casting is extremely even. I got very, very lucky in the sense that everybody had a strength that showed through. There are a few non-actors in this movie because we kind of wanted that cinema verite element, but you'd be hard pressed to identify who they were, I think.
And you also, there's no recycled characters in this movie. Everybody is their own character, and it's awesome. It's so incredible how I want to talk about it, but I can't. So we're going to get into your first horror movie before I spoil anything. Your first horror movie, what got you rolling in the genre was
The Exorcist. And here's the thing is, check out my Instagram today at the Kristin West. You're going to see a picture of me as a nun.
The Nun.
The Nun. Okay, so I went to Catholic school and I saw The Exorcist for the first time around that time in elementary school. My grandma was babysitting me. I think she had taken a nap. I'd gotten control of the remote, and bad little Catholic schoolgirl, I was like,
yeah,
scared the shit out of me.
Oh, I don't blame you. Like I've told the story on the podcast before. P.S. I did see the nun picture. Obviously, we didn't talk about that before this. I did see that, and I like how you wrote in the caption, you were the original nun. You know, I love that picture. That's such an awesome picture. So I thank you for sharing that. I love seeing stuff like that. There's a stigma in The Exorcist with me because I grew up in a video store and I gravitated to the horror section, obviously. But my mom one night rented The Exorcist. She'd always been scared to watch it. One night she was like, you know what, we'll do it. And we started watching it, and we got to the crucifix scene, and she shut it off. She was like, you're not allowed to watch this. And that was the first and only time my mother had ever shut a movie off and told me that I wasn't allowed to watch it. So to me, this always had that stigma around it of, ooh, what's going on here? I need to watch this. And I did. And I was like, ooh, I didn't need to watch that. That's terrifying, scary. So, I mean, but it's one of the movies, you know, I had to get, you know, director's cut. I love listening to the commentary. I don't know if you've seen it, but on Shudder they have Cursed Films, and they do an episode on The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It's amazing. To me, there's been The Exorcist and The Blair Witch Project are two movies that you'll never be able to duplicate what those did in cinema. I mean, The Exorcist had people crying and screaming and puking and leaving. The Blair Witch Project had that stigma of you couldn't just get on your phone and Google if this is real or not. And it had that stigma of, did this really happen? Is this, you know, found footage wasn't what it is now then. So I think that The Exorcist and The Blair Witch Project will always have their place in history because of what they were in the cinema. And I think that's amazing that you started with this movie. Now, we talked a little bit about it before the podcast. I don't know if we were able to figure one out, but do you remember which scene affected you the most from The Exorcist?
You know, it was so long ago, but here's the thing about, and I have a fascination with this. It doesn't show up so much in the Central Authority, but I have a fascination with especially the spooky element of the Catholic Church, like the incorruptible saints, their bodies don't decompose. I have a fascination with just like some of the Christmas carols. The older Catholic Christmas carols are really spooky. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the time I was going to this older Catholic school in San Antonio, and it looked like a set of a horror movie at times because it was kind of dark and a little musty.
Yeah.
And the nuns, God bless their souls, they were really, really up there. I mean, 70, 80, working at the school still. And I think what that movie probably did was showed me the potential of horror within the context of religion, because sometimes we're like, oh, religion will protect you from horror. Not necessarily.
Right. Well, and the thing about The Exorcist is it really weighs the good versus evil. You need one to have the other. There's not always this clear-cut evil or this clear-cut good that's going to win. Sometimes there's that balance of good and evil. And if you believe in evil, you have to believe in good. If you believe in God, you have to believe in the devil. Like, it's just one of those things where they go hand in hand with each other. It sounds disgusting to say it like that, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have.
And I mean, that's a very like Taoist idea in a way, that there's a balance of light and dark in the circumstances that we're living in. And in order to appreciate the light, you've got to have the dark. In order to appreciate the darkness, you have to have the light. And you can't, you know, and nobody is all good or bad. I mean, you could, you know, even saints have their moments, but when you're confronted with the level of evil that The Exorcist shows you, it's very hard to take in that even arguably the bastion of Christianity that the Catholic Church is having a hard time overcoming this is interesting. And I will recommend some reading to you. If you're interested in reading more about exorcism, there's a really great book called The Rite by Matt Baglio. And that's actually a journal of a Vatican exorcist, like the real dude, talking about how people like throw up keys and stuff. Interesting.
Well, I want you to email that to me when we're done with this, and I'll remind you. So there's a couple of things I got to have you email me, but this is something I'm definitely very interested in. So, and I've always been a big fan of exorcism type material, and reading something like that I think would be awesome. I was so lucky to have Eileen Dietz, who played Pazuzu in The Exorcist. I had her on an episode, which was amazing. And
Eileen's a fun lady. I've met her a few times. She's a fun lady.
She is very incredible, and just being able to hear some of her stories from behind the scenes, and it really piques your interest in The Exorcist and what it means. So that's another reason that I'm so enamored in this. And this is a movie that affected me very much, like I said, and hearing how it affected you means a lot to me too. So with this movie, I know it sucks with this movie trying to pick a favorite scene. We talked about a scene that affected you, but is there a scene that really sticks out to you that, you know, whether it be one of the comedic lines or something super dark that just has stuck with you?
Oh gosh. I mean, you know, I think seeing Eileen crawl, just the crawling, you know, you're just, you know, my 8-year-old mind, I think partly blocked it out. Like,
Right.
No. But it's interesting because I think you come at that movie differently if you were raised Catholic versus if you were raised in some other religion as well.
Sure.
Because if you were raised Catholic, especially at that time, that was very real.
Yeah.
You know, this is like almost documentary footage to you. My grandma warned me about that. You know, versus if you come from a Protestant religion or a non-Christian religion, you're just like, really? But yeah, I mean, all of it, and the crawling up the wall and the stuff, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm too traumatized. That could be it too.
Well, and here's another thing that I've talked about on the podcast as well. You were a young lady at this point, you know, and you're discovering your body at this point, and you're looking at somebody in the film that is also a young lady that is doing things to her body, and, you know, even the puking, the crucifix scene, all that. So, and again, I'm no therapist or anything, but I've watched Good Will Hunting, so I guess I can comment on a couple things. With you being a young lady, I think that this may have affected you more than it would a young man, because you're watching these things happen to a young lady, and you can relate to that a little bit more than me, you know, watching it as a young boy. I didn't know what she was doing to that crucifix. I thought she was just stabbing herself. I had no clue. I mean, again, as a little boy, I shouldn't have known. And to be honest with you, a little girl shouldn't know. But you could know what's going on there, because, you know, I don't know what a female's body looks like at that age. I don't know what's going on. So I think that The Exorcist may have scared young ladies more than it scared young men. But I watch it now as an adult, and it scares me as a parent. I get scared for a totally different reason, because, you know, as a kid, you're like, why, what are they doing? Just let her go. But as a father of two little girls, I would be doing you know, I'm going to do whatever I can to save you. Take me, do whatever you have to do to me, but leave my daughter alone. So that's what I love about revisiting horror movies as an adult versus as a kid, because of the different feelings you get as a parent or as a child.
And it's true. And especially in Catholic thought, there is a very, like, you have in Catholicism, you have different apparitions of the Virgin Mary. Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Guadalupe. You have all of these people over the years that have seen the Virgin Mary. There is a tendency in Catholic thought that the people who see the Virgin Mary tend to be younger, elementary school age females, like Saint Bernadette, like the children at Medjugorje. So there's this, and even in the Gospels, let the little children come to me. And then you have a little child just being terrorized by, you know, the unspeakable, that really can rattle you, you know, and that's what's, I guess, seeing that movie at that time and being about the same age, and it's like, oh, I'm very vulnerable.
Yeah. And like you said, hearing these, you went to a Catholic school, so you're getting taught the gospel and you're learning about the gospel. But then to see something like this actually play out on screen, can't imagine what that does to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I was sort of I wasn't entirely comfortable in Catholic school. I'll be honest about that. It didn't quite fit me. I was only in Catholic school for 2 years, and then I was moved to public school, which was better for me. But it's really interesting because especially Catholicism is a very structured experience. You know, you follow your 10 commandments, you do your beatitudes, you say your prayers, you go to confession, and you still get your golden ticket to heaven.
Right.
But and if you follow those rules, you'll still be there. There's not much room for chaos in a Catholic experience at all.
Sure.
And then you're confronted with this level of chaos in that movie, and you're just like, oh, the church can't handle this.
Right.
What, and you know, and then you're thinking, you're projecting, like you said, what would my parish pastor do? What would the chaplain of my Catholic school do if this happened to me?
Right. I totally get that. It's a terrifying thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to move away from The Exorcist just for a second. I always throw this in there. We talked about your first horror movie, which was The Exorcist, but now I got to go scream on you. What's your favorite scary movie, Kristin? What is your favorite horror movie?
This is going to be a weird one. Haxen. It is an old Danish horror film about witch trials. And just watch it for the cinematography and the storytelling alone, and the way it's cut, because it's very much ahead of its time. There's a lot of really deep, intense close-ups. There's a lot of experimentation in the camera with Haxen that's very, very interesting. So Haxen, I believe in Danish means witch, like hex, but Haxan.
Okay.
I really like that. I study it a lot. You know, and right now, I mean, there's so much good work coming out of the indie world that we don't even say enough about. You know, the real crucible. I spent a lot of time at horror film festivals, covering them, judging them, looking at them. I would say I wish we had more space for that in just regular. You know, obviously, you're creating space for that. There's a movie I really, really, really enjoy. It's called Streamer. This is an indie pick. It's by, it's a Canadian film. It stars Tanya Lee and Jared Bratt. Jared, if I got your name wrong or I got it backwards, I'm sorry. But I saw this movie and they're calling it The Taxi Driver for the Digital Age. And it's about a guy who falls in love with a webcam girl, and then he gets stalkerish with her, and then things just really go down a bad path. But it really talks about the loneliness that we have when we can only interface with each other digitally. So I love Streamer. It's a Canadian indie horror that it has stuck with me ever since seeing it 2 years ago. If you have the opportunity to see it, I'd recommend it. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, for all the horror, I'm really like a soft person. I like Hocus Pocus. I like the Addams Family. I like, you know, I like Casper. I'm, you know, deep down, it's funny because I sort of like that softer bit, a little less gore and a little more fun. That's me, but then again, I think it counterbalances some of the stuff you saw with the Central Authority.
Well, you're talking about something I just brought up recently on social media. Casper the Ghost, the Devon Sawa one, I think it was 96 or 97, has one of the best scores I've ever heard in a film. I think it's the most underrated score. When you go from beginning to end, the score in that movie is brilliant. and I love it. And I think it's so underrated. I'm glad you brought that movie up because I've been waiting to talk about that on here. But the score for that movie is absolutely genius. And I'm with you. I like a lot of that. Growing up, I grew up with Goosebumps,
Right.
the TV show and the books. And so I do have a soft spot for Goosebumps, for The Haunted Mansion, Hocus Pocus, Casper. House is my all-time favorite horror movie, and a lot of people think that's a soft movie, and I think it's brilliant. I love that movie, and I don't think that you have to have blood and guts everywhere for it to be a horror movie.
No, I agree. And if you're looking for gore, I'm going to tell you, it was kind of hard. We have some blood in the Central Authority, but it's really hard to achieve when you're trying to stay contactless, but we do have some. But sometimes the most horrifying things are not carnage, but death of the spirit, death of the personality, the loss of hope.
Yes.
And
there is definitely some of that.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And overall, it's that Socratic notion of the unexamined life. Is it worth living or not? And is this a life that's worth living under these unhealthy, unlife affirming circumstances?
Sure.
And I think, and like you were talking about horror as a space for exploring that's definitely part of it. And that's sort of what Armin Nasseri, who co-directed this movie with me, who also did all the fabulous, miraculous editing of this movie.
Yeah.
He is very much that's part of his artistic sensibility as well, is that horror is a giant space for social criticism when done the right way. And examining ourselves and what we will tolerate and what we will not.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I have Armin coming on the show too, so I'm excited to have him. You guys will see that episode in a couple of days, but we always end this, Kristin, with the same question. We're going with a skull count. We're going back to The Exorcist, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would you rate The Exorcist, 0 to 5?
11. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it's.
I remember, just seeing it at that time, at that context in my life. Yeah. You don't want to see that. I honestly, you don't want to see that under unideal circumstances. Let's put it that
Sure.
way.
And it's amazing. Anybody that hasn't.
I wouldn't suggest that you show it to your small Catholic school children. If your babysitter tends to nap, check the TV guide before.
And it's one of those movies that stands the test of time. I mean, not only does it stand up, but we still get exorcism movies to this day that would never have existed without the original Exorcist. William Friedkin knew what he was doing with that film. He's a genius. That was amazing.
What year was The Exorcist?
I want to say 78. But there was one time in the 90s I was wrong, so it could happen again.
Even
73.
at that time,
1973.
People need to understand too, 73, at that time, the church, the Catholic Church, was still very much in a culture battle in itself with, do we say Mass in Latin? Do you say it in your own language? There was all this tumultuousness within the church, and the church was still under intense public scrutiny at that time.
Sure.
For all the reforms that they were doing in the church from the mid 60s to the early 70s. So it was ballsy to even do that movie at that time, much less do that movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, like I said, even to this day, it holds up. There's still parts that make me uncomfortable to this day. So I got to give it to that. Don't go anywhere though, Kristin. I got a couple more questions for you when we go off. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description, following Kristin on social media. Make sure you keep your ears to the ground. I'll be letting you know any updates I get on the Central Authority distribution, as will Kristin and the other cast members. Until then, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.